Her scream tore through the evening air, sharp enough to hush the night. Emily's arms were pinned against the dirt, her cheeks scraping rough ground, breath catching in the dust. A heavy boot pressed in her back, forcing her still. She tried to twist free, but the weight above her wouldn't budge. Somewhere behind, Jack shouted her name, again and again, until his voice broke. Then came the dull thud of metal against flesh. The sound didn't stop. Wood cracked. Bone followed. His cries turned to gurgles, then silence. Inside the cabin, the chaos kept going. Drawers ripped open, glass shattering, chairs thrown. Men's voices barked over one another. "Where's the stash?" one demanded. Emily couldn't speak. Blood and dirt filled her mouth. "She's lying." Another snapped. "He said he had gold here." They tore through everything, books, floorboards, cupboards, like animals smelling blood. If you're watching this, subscribe and let me know where you're watching from. This story gets much more intense, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. When they finally dragged her up, the room spun. Her dress was torn, sticky with blood on one side. She could barely stay on her feet when one of them threw her against the back wall. That's when she saw the window. It was now or never. She turned, threw herself through the glass. Shards cut her arm, but she didn't stop to look. The cold air hit her lungs as she ran into the woods. Branches whipped her face, and the sound of boots followed. Curses, gunfire, breaking branches. The sun was dropping fast, and the light fading between the trees turned everything into shadows. Her breath came in ragged gasps. "Don't stop. Don't fall. Just run." After what felt like forever, the trees opened into a stretch of open land. Far ahead, she saw a fence, a gate, and beyond it, the faint glow of a forge. The ranch. Sam's place. She stumbled the last few feet and collapsed just outside the gate, clutching something tight against her chest, a wooden box, rough and heavy. She didn't even remember grabbing it. Inside the barn, Sam was hammering iron when he heard the crash. The tongs slipped from his hands. He turned and froze. Emily Darnell, pale, bloodied, barely standing, knelt in the dirt, arms locked around that box like it was her last breath. Her lips trembled when she saw him. "Sam," she gasped. "They killed him. They're coming." Then she went limp. Sam caught her before she hit the ground. She was light, frighteningly so. He carried her inside, laid her down by the hearth. "Stay still," he murmured, fetching a towel and water. When the cloth touched her wound, she flinched hard. "Easy," he said softly. "Please, it hurts," she whispered through clenched teeth. Sam's voice dropped. "It'll be quick, I promise." The bleeding wasn't deep, but enough to leave a trail, one her pursuers could easily follow. He looked at the box she'd brought. It was old, the latch rusted, edges burned as if it had survived a fire. She'd clung to it like her life depended on it. Outside, the wind rose and the horses in the corral stirred nervously. In the distance, faint but unmistakable, came the echo of hooves. 3, maybe 4 riders. Sam glanced toward the window, jaw tightening. Whoever they were close. Emily stirred, eyes fluttering open. The firelight danced over her face. Where am I?" she asked weakly. "My place," Sam said. "You're safe for now." She tried to sit up, but pain pinned her back down. "Jack," she whispered. "He didn't make it." Sam didn't answer. He just nodded once, his gaze heavy. Outside, thunder rolled low across the plains, and Sam knew it wasn't weather. It was the sound of men coming, the kind who didn't stop until they got what they came for. He reached for the rifle resting by the door, checked the chamber, and whispered to himself, "All right, boys. Let's see what you're after." Inside, the fire cracked. Emily's hand found the wooden box again, her fingers tracing the scars in its surface. She didn't know what was inside, or why she had risked her life to bring it. Only that it was the last thing she'd held before everything went dark. And outside, the night was waiting, hooves growing louder, wind cutting colder. The fight wasn't over. It had just begun. Emily woke to the smell of iron and smoke. For a few seconds, she didn't know where she was. The ceiling beams above her looked strange, familiar and foreign all at once. Then it all came flooding back, the screams, the blows, Jack's voice breaking. She gasped and tried to sit up, but her side caught fire with pain. Sam was sitting near the fire, quiet, elbows resting on his knees. He didn't move when she stirred, only watched her the way a man watches a storm roll in, wary, patient. "Don't push it," he said softly. "You lost some blood." Her voice cracked. "I thought I died." "You didn't," he replied, "but it was close." Tears welled before she could stop them. "They killed him, Sam. They beat him with a shovel. I heard the sound. They laughed while they did it." Her voice fell to a whisper. "They said he had gold somewhere." Sam rubbed his jaw. Maybe he talked big. Some folks do when they want to feel rich for a while. "He wasn't like that," Emily said. "He dreamed out loud. Said one day we'd buy land in Oregon, start over. We didn't even own our house." Her gaze drifted to the wooden box resting on the floor beside her. "I grabbed that thing without thinking. It was under the table. Maybe you put something in it. Maybe not. But those men, they'll come back for it." Sam stood, poured a little whiskey into a cup, and handed it to her. "Drink this." She took a sip, coughed, and winced. "They saw me run. They'll track me here." "They'll try," he said. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling. "One of them, big guy, broken nose, he worked for us last spring. Fixed the roof. He knows this land. He'll know you too." Sam nodded, calm as still water. "Then he'll know I don't scare easy." Her eyes met his. "You're not planning to fight them, are you?" He didn't answer right away. The wind outside pushed hard against the cabin walls. "You got another idea?" Emily shook her head, eyes glistening. Sam walked to the back of the room, moved a barrel aside, and knelt. Beneath it was a square of old wood, half covered in dust. He pried it up, revealing a hollow space below. "Ever hear of a hider's hole?" She blinked. "No. Used them back in the war," he said. "Big enough for two. Quiet enough to outweigh trouble." Her voice wavered. "You think they'll check the barn?" "I hope they do," he said. "Means the plan's working." He looked at her, really looked at her. Her eyes were still wild from fear, her face drawn pale by loss. "You can sit here and worry," he said gently, "or you can help me set a trap they'll never forget." Emily hesitated, then gave a small nod. The wind howled through the cracks in the walls. In the distance, a gunshot cracked the night, just one, but it carried like thunder over dry land. Sam froze for half a heartbeat, eyes narrowing. "They're closer than I thought." Her fingers gripped the blanket. "They found the trail," she whispered. He stood, calm but alert, the kind of calm that came from seeing too much already. "Then we don't have long." She looked up at him, her voice small. "Sam, what if they kill you too?" He didn't smile, didn't joke, just said, "Then I hope they aim straight." Outside, the hooves grew louder, the sound rolling through the valley. Sam reached for his rifle, checked the sight, and turned to her. "You get in there. No talking, no light." "I can help," she said, almost pleading. "Not tonight," he said. There was something in his eyes she couldn't argue with, something old and tired, the kind of look soldiers bring home and never lose. She climbed into the dark space under the floor. Sam lowered the lid, covered it with a rug, and blew out the lamps. The forge outside burned red, throwing light through the cracks. His shadow stretched across the cabin like a warning. Then came the voices. 3 men, laughing, calling out, "Evening, old man. We're looking for a lady came through here. Pretty one. Hurt bad. Carrying something belongs to us." Sam stood still for a moment, then whispered to himself, "All right, boys. Let's dance." He stepped out into the wind. The air outside was heavy, thick with the scent of dust and storm. Sam stepped off the porch, the boards creaking under his boots. The forge's dying glow cast long shadows across the dirt, painting the yard in red and smoke. 3 men waited by the gate, 2 on horseback, 1 on foot. Their faces flickered in the torchlight, mean and tired, the kind of faces that didn't flinch at blood. The man in front, broad shoulders, nose bent from an old break, grinned when he saw him. "Evening, Sam. We're looking for a woman passed this way. She was carrying something that belongs to us." Sam rested his rifle on his shoulder. "Ain't seen anyone. Maybe you took a wrong turn." "Funny," the man said, spitting into the dirt. "'Cause her blood trail ends right here." Sam's jaw tightened. Then maybe she bled faster than you can ride. The laughter that followed was low and sharp. The man with the shotgun stepped closer. You hide in her, old man. Sam met his eyes without blinking. I don't hide anyone, but I don't take kindly to strangers threatening women on my land. The one with the broken nose smirked. Ain't your land no more, Ramsey. He lifted the shotgun, casual but ready. Sam didn't wait. The first shot came from the forge's shadow. A flash, a crack, then a scream. Horses reared, hooves slamming the dirt. The second shot echoed off the barn walls. One of the riders fell sideways, torch rolling into the dust. The yard filled with smoke and chaos. Under the floorboards, Emily covered her ears. Her heartbeat thudded so loud it drowned out everything else. The world above her became sound. Gunfire, shouting, the thud of boots. Then silence. A single wet gasp. Sam stood over the last man alive, the one with the broken nose. The others were already still, sprawled near the gate. The night smelled of gunpowder and blood. The forge hissed where a body had fallen against it, iron sizzling like rain on coals. Sam's voice was steady, but his hand shook when he reloaded. You got one chance, he said. Tell me why you killed Jack. The man coughed, spit dark, tried to smile. He owed us. No, Sam said quietly. You owed him. He paid you for fixing that roof. I remember. The man's eyes flicked toward the barn. Just for a second, but enough. Sam followed his gaze. What's in there? He asked. No answer. Sam crouched, grabbed a rag, and pressed it hard against the man's wound. The man screamed. Gold, he gasped. Said he found gold. Sam frowned. Who told you that? The man's head rolled back. Somebody in town. Old fella. Said Jack hit a vein near the creek. We just came to collect. Sam's voice dropped to a whisper. You call that collecting? He let go of the rag. The man slumped, breath fading, eyes fixed on nothing. When the last echo of gunfire faded, Sam turned toward the cabin. Smoke from the forge swirled through the air, red light dancing across the walls. He lifted the rug, opened the hatch. It's done, he said. Emily blinked in the lamplight, trembling. All of them. Most, he said. One talk. She looked at him, at the blood on his shirt, the soot on his face. Sam, what did he say? He hesitated. He said Jack might have really found something. In the barn. Emily's eyes widened. That can't be true. Only one way to find out. He led her outside, through the smoke and quiet, toward the barn. The wind had calmed, but the air felt charged, as if the land itself was waiting. Emily held the lantern high. The light spilled across the ground. Tools, hay, old wood. Nothing unusual. Then Sam kicked the floor hard. The sound changed. Hollow. He dropped to his knees, brushed away the dirt, and pulled open a small hatch hidden beneath a layer of straw. Inside, stacked neatly in a wooden chest, were gold coins, real ones heavy and gleaming. Emily gasped. He was going to surprise me, she whispered. He said he'd buy us land out west. I thought he was just dreaming. Sam exhaled slowly. He wasn't lying after all. For a long moment, neither spoke. Only the crackle of the forge broke the silence. Then Emily said quietly, he died for this. Sam looked at her. And maybe we'll live because of it. The night wind shifted, carrying a new sound, distant hooves, slow and steady. Not wild, not aimless. Someone was coming. Sam's grip tightened on his rifle. We ain't done yet, he muttered. The wind came low and restless, carrying the smell of dust and smoke. Sam stood at the barn door, the rifle still warm in his hands, watching the horizon where the sound of hooves echoed faintly. Emily stayed close behind him, the lantern trembling in her fingers. The gold still lay uncovered, shining faintly beneath the flickering light like something cursed. Someone's coming, Sam said, voice low. Emily swallowed hard. Another one of them? Could be, he said, or could be worse. They waited. The seconds stretched long and hollow. Then a shape appeared at the gate, a lone rider, coat worn to threads, hat low against the wind. He didn't raise a gun, just slowed his horse and lifted a hand. Sam raised his rifle anyway. That's close enough, he called out. The man stopped, slid off his horse, slow and tired. His voice carried steady through the night. Name's McCready. Sheriff Outa Stillwater. Heard shots from the ridge. Came to see if anyone's left breathing. Sam hesitated, eyes narrowing. You travel alone? Always do, the man said. His tone was calm, worn down by too many long nights. He stepped closer to the fence, looked past Sam to the bodies sprawled near the forge, then to the gold glinting behind him. Looks like you had yourselves a hell of a night. Emily stepped into the light, her face pale, eyes still red from tears. The sheriff's gaze softened when he saw her. Ma'am, you hurt. She's fine, Sam said quickly. The sheriff's eyes drifted to the gold again. That trouble about money? Sam didn't answer. He didn't have to. The story was written across the dirt. The gunfire, the blood, the broken men. McCready sighed. You best bury that quick. Folks kill for less out here. Sam nodded once, still holding the rifle. We'll handle it. The sheriff tipped his hat. I'll file it clean. Self-defense, from the looks of it. You two just be gone from here before sunrise. He mounted up, turned his horse toward the ridge, and was gone before either of them spoke again. For a long time, there was nothing but wind and silence. Emily stared at the gold. Her hands shook when she reached out to touch it. He really did it, she said softly. He found gold. Sam leaned against the wall, tired all the way through. Looks that way. But for what? She whispered. He died for it. And now all I can think is, what good is gold if the person you love's gone? He didn't answer right away. He just looked at her. The way her fingers trembled, the dirt smudged across her face, the grief sitting deep in her eyes. Sometimes people chase what they think will save them, he said finally, only to find out it costs everything else. She nodded slowly, tears slipping down her cheek. I thought gold meant freedom. Now it just feels like a curse. Sam walked closer, his voice quiet. Then leave it. We'll bury it with him. She looked at him, surprised. You'd really do that? Money can't bring peace, he said. And peace is worth more than any chest of coins. Emily's breath hitched, but she nodded. Together they carried the gold out behind the barn, digging a grave beside Jack's with bare hands and shovels. The dirt was cold and hard, but they didn't stop until the chest was covered. The last clink of coins disappeared under the earth. When it was done, Emily stood still for a long moment, her head bowed. You saved my life, she whispered. Sam's hands were raw from the shovel. He gave a faint smile. Maybe, but you reminded me why it's worth Savon. The dawn came slow, painting the sky in soft gray and gold. They buried Jack properly, marked his grave with a flat stone, and stood there while the first light broke over the hills. Emily wiped her eyes. What now? Sam looked toward the horizon. You could take what's left of the ranch. Start new somewhere. California, maybe. Oregon like he wanted. She shook her head. I don't think I want gold or land anymore. I just want peace. He nodded. Peace is harder to find than gold. But sometimes, if you're lucky, it finds you first. She smiled faintly at that. For the first time since the night began, her face softened. The storm had passed, but something had changed between them. Something quiet like trust. Weeks passed. The ranch grew still again. The forge burned, but not as often. And sometimes on the quiet nights, the glow from inside the cabin flickered with laughter, soft, almost shy. Two souls stitched back together by loss, learning to live again. People in town would tell the story for years. The widow who ran through the dark, and the old soldier who stood his ground. And every time someone told it, they ended the same way. Sometimes the things that break us are the very things that make us whole again. And maybe, just maybe, that's what love really means. Not what we hold on to, but what we learn to let go of. The weeks rolled by with the quiet patience of healing wounds. The days were long and dry, filled with the sound of the forge and the whisper of wind through open fields. Emily found herself waking before sunrise, sitting by the window with a blanket over her shoulders, watching light crawl over the hills. For the first time in weeks, the world didn't feel like it was closing in on her. Sam kept busy fixing fences, tending the horses, hammering nails into the barn that still bore bullet holes. He spoke little, but his silence wasn't cold anymore. It was steady, a kind of peace he hadn't known since the war. Sometimes she'd bring him coffee, and they'd sit together in easy quiet, Two people who didn't need to fill every moment with words. But some nights were harder. The nightmares still came for her. She'd wake gasping, heart pounding, hearing Jack's voice in the dark. Sam never said much when it happened. He'd just hand her a cup of water, sit beside her until her breathing slowed, and stare at the fire. "You ain't alone anymore," he'd whisper. Those words were small, but they steadied her every time. One afternoon, Emily stood by the grave on the hill. The sun was warm, but the wind was sharp, tugging at her hair. "I don't know if I'll ever stop missing you," she whispered to the stone. "But I'm learning how to live again." She placed a wildflower on the mound, let her fingers linger there, then turned toward the ranch below. Sam was mending a corral post when she walked back. Sweat darkened his shirt, sawdust on his arms. He looked up, smiling faintly. "Fence won't hold much longer. Thinking I'll rebuild it proper." She smiled back, a real one this time. "You never stop fixing things, do you?" He shrugged. "Gives my hand something to do when my mind won't quiet." Emily leaned on the post beside him. "You ever think about leaving? Heading somewhere new?" Sam looked toward the horizon, where the land stretched endless in gold. "I used to. But this place, it's got ghosts that need tending. Maybe I'm one of them." She studied him, the lines around his eyes carved deep by time and loss. "You could start over," she said softly. "So could you." Their eyes met for a moment too long before she looked away, pretending to watch the horses. "Starting over is harder than running," she said. "Yeah," Sam replied quietly. "But running don't change what follows you." That night, the wind came down from the ridge cold and sharp. Sam sat by the fire, the old rifle across his knees. Emily sat nearby, sewing a tear in her dress. The silence between them was gentle. After a while, she spoke. "Do you ever wish you could forget?" He poked at the fire, eyes distant. "No. Forget means losing who we are. I just wish remembering didn't hurt so much." Emily nodded, looking into the flames. "Jack used to say pain was the only thing that proved you were still alive." Sam smiled faintly. "Smart man." She looked up at him. But he didn't know how to stop fighting battles that weren't his. Sam stared into the fire for a long time before speaking again. "Neither did I." The clock ticked softly. Somewhere outside, a horse snorted, restless in the dark. The world felt both small and safe, wrapped in the quiet of people who'd survived too much to take peace for granted. Later, when the fire burned low, Emily stood. "I think I'll turn in," she said. "Good night, Em," he said, using the nickname without thinking. She froze for a moment, a small smile curving her lips. "Good night, Sam." When she closed her door, Sam sat staring at the coals, a strange ache blooming in his chest. He wasn't sure what to call it. Hope, maybe. The kind he hadn't felt since before the war, before the losses that had hollowed him out. He looked toward the window, at the stars spread across the sky like scattered gold dust. The thought crossed his mind that maybe not all treasure was buried in the ground. And for the first time since that night, he whispered to himself, "Maybe we ain't meant to stay broken forever." The wind sighed through the cracks in the cabin, soft as a lullaby. Down the hall, Emily's lamp went out. The house settled into quiet again, two hearts still learning how to beat in the same world after so much hurt. The next morning came soft and golden, sunlight slipping through the cracks of the old barn. Emily could hear the steady rhythm of Sam's hammer before she even opened her eyes. It was a comforting sound now, the kind that made the world feel anchored again. She wrapped a shawl around her shoulders and stepped outside. The air smelled like hay and ash, cool enough to sting her lungs. Sam was by the corral, fixing a broken rail. His sleeves were rolled up, sweat darkening the collar of his shirt. He didn't notice her right away, too focused on his work, and for a moment she just watched him. He moved with quiet strength, every swing of the hammer sure and patient, like he was building more than fences, like he was building something inside himself back piece by piece. "You ever take a break?" she said finally, her voice soft but teasing. He looked up, smiled a little. "Breaking things is easy. Keeping 'em together, that's the hard part." She smiled back, brushing a loose strand of hair from her face. "You sound like my husband." The words slipped out before she could stop them. Her chest tightened. She looked down at the dirt, suddenly unsure. "Sorry," she murmured. Sam set the hammer aside. Don't be. You loved him. That ain't something to be sorry for. She looked at him then, eyes glassy. I did. But some nights, I don't even know if I miss him or just the life we were supposed to have. Sam's voice came quiet. Maybe both. Sometimes the dream hurts worse than the loss. For a moment, neither spoke. The wind rustled through the dry grass, carrying the faint smell of rain somewhere far off. They spent the morning working side by side, patching the fence, feeding the horses, hauling buckets from the well. Every small chore filled the silence between them, the kind of silence that didn't need fixing. Emily found peace in it. For the first time, her hands didn't shake when she touched something fragile. By late afternoon, clouds gathered low and gray over the hills. Sam stood at the barn door, wiping sweat from his forehead. Rain's coming, he said. Good, Emily replied. This land needs it. When the storm broke, it came all at once. The rain fell hard, pounding against the roof. The air turned cool and smelled of wet earth. Inside the barn, they sat on overturned buckets, watching the downpour through the open door. It's strange, she said, hugging her knees. A few weeks ago, I thought I'd never see rain again. Everything was just fire and noise and fear. Sam nodded. I know that feeling. After the war, I couldn't stand the sound of thunder. Felt too much like cannon fire. Took years to hear it as rain again. Emily looked at him. How do you stop hearing the war and everything? I didn't, he said. I just learned to live with the echoes. Her eyes softened. And now you're helping me live with mine. He chuckled lightly. Maybe we're helping each other. She smiled through the dim light, and something inside her eased. A small, fragile warmth she hadn't felt since before the blood and screaming. It was simple and human, the kind of warmth that reminded her she was still alive. Hours passed. The storm began to fade. The rain turned to a quiet drizzle. Sam got up, fetched an old blanket, and draped it over her shoulders. His hands lingered just a moment too long. She didn't pull away. Thank you, she whispered. He looked down at her, his face gentle in the lantern glow. You don't owe me thanks. Maybe not, she said, eyes meeting his. But I mean it anyway. He sat back down, staring out into the wet darkness. You ever wonder what comes next? All the time, she said. But I think maybe not knowing is the point. Maybe life's just what you do with a second chance. Sam nodded slowly. Then we better make ours count. They stayed there until the rain stopped completely. The world outside smelled clean again, washed of its old ghosts. For a long time, neither of them spoke, both lost in quiet thoughts that didn't need to be shared. Later that night, Emily couldn't sleep. She walked out to the porch, the boards cool under her bare feet. The sky was full of stars, bright, endless, the way it used to look when she was a girl. Sam joined her a few minutes later, carrying 2 mugs of coffee. You always up this late? He asked. Only when my mind won't stop talking, she said with a tired smile. He handed her a mug. Then drink. Helps quiet mine. She took a sip, the warmth settling deep in her chest. You ever think you could love again, Sam? He didn't answer right away. The night air held still. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. I think maybe I already started. Emily turned to him, startled, but he wasn't looking at her, just at the stars. She didn't say a word. Didn't have to. They sat together in silence, the kind that said everything words couldn't. For the first time since that night, Emily didn't feel broken. She felt real. The next morning, the world felt softer. The storm had washed the land clean. Drops of water hung from every fence post and blade of grass, shining in the sunlight like tiny bits of glass. Emily stood on the porch, holding her coffee cup with both hands, breathing in the smell of wet earth. For once, her chest didn't ache. Sam came out of the barn, leading one of the horses toward the corral. Morning, he said, his voice still rough with sleep. Morning, she replied. You work too much. He smiled. Someone's got to keep this place standing. She shook her head, smiling too. You just don't know how to rest. He tied the horse and leaned on the fence. Guess I forgot how, he said, but maybe you can teach me. Her cheeks warmed a little, and she laughed quietly. It was the first time her laugh didn't sound like something breaking. They ate breakfast together in the kitchen, sunlight spilling across the table. It was simple: bread, eggs, black coffee, but it felt like more than a meal. It felt like life finding its way back. Afterward, Sam went to fix the wagon wheel that had been cracked since before the storm. Emily offered to help, and together they lifted the old wood and hammered it back into place. Every sound of the hammer echoed through the open yard. "You ever think about going back to town?" she asked after a while. He didn't look up. "Not much reason to." "There's always a reason," she said. "People, work, maybe a little peace." Sam straightened, wiping his hands on his jeans. "Town's full of talk. Out here's quiet. I can live with quiet." She nodded. "I used to think quiet meant loneliness. Now it just feels like breathing again." He smiled at that, the kind of smile that showed he understood exactly what she meant. That evening, they sat outside again, watching the sunset burn across the horizon. The sky turned gold, then red, then finally purple. Emily leaned her head against the porch post. "I could get used to this," she said softly. "Used to what?" Sam asked. "This," she said. "The quiet. The peace." "You." He turned toward her, surprise flickering across his face, but before he could answer, the sound of hooves echoed from far down the road. Both of them froze. Sam stood up slowly. "Stay inside," he said. Emily's stomach tightened. "It can't be. Just in case," he said, his hand already on his rifle. The sound grew louder, slow, steady, not hurried. A single rider. The horse came into view near the gate, dust rising under its hooves. Sam stepped off the porch, rifle at his side. "Who's there?" he called. The rider stopped. "Name's Dalton," the man said, voice rough. "I worked for a man named Jack Darnell last spring. Heard about what happened." Emily's breath caught. She came to the door. "You knew my husband?" Dalton nodded. "He owed me wages. Never came back to pay. I figured something went wrong, but I didn't know it was this bad." His eyes flicked to the ground, then to Sam. "Word in town is you two got something he left behind." Sam's jaw tightened. "We buried what he left." Dalton's eyes narrowed. "That's so." Emily stepped forward, voice calm but firm. "There's nothing here for you." For a long moment, nobody spoke. The air felt tight, like the land was holding its breath. Then Dalton gave a dry laugh. "You're a brave one," he said. "Jack used to say you had more fire than sense." "He was right," she said quietly. Dalton stared at her a moment longer, then nodded. "I ain't here to take nothing. Just wanted to say I'm sorry. He talked about you all the time. Said you were his heart." Emily's eyes filled with tears, but she held her chin high. "Thank you for telling me." Dalton tipped his hat, turned his horse, and rode off into the fading light. Sam watched until the dust settled. Then he lowered his rifle and looked at her. "You all right?" She nodded slowly, wiping her eyes. "Yeah, just didn't think anyone else remembered him." Sam stepped closer, his voice gentle. "I think that's the thing about love. It don't die easy." She looked up at him, her heart catching in her throat. "No," she whispered. "It don't." The sun disappeared behind the hills, leaving them standing side by side in the quiet. The world felt different, still fragile, but alive again. For the first time in a long time, Emily wasn't looking back. She was looking forward. The next few months passed like a slow breath. The land healed. The grass grew tall again, and wildflowers spread where the rain had fallen. The ranch didn't look the same anymore, but it felt alive in a new way, like it had finally let go of all the noise and blood it once held. Emily found a rhythm she didn't think she ever would again. She mended clothes, baked bread, fed the horses, and kept the place running. Some mornings she'd wake before dawn and just stand outside, watching the horizon blush pink. The pain was still there, quiet but steady like a scar that no longer hurt to touch. Sam changed too. The lines on his face softened. He still worked from sunup to sundown, but sometimes when the chores were done, he'd sit on the porch with his boots off, coffee in hand, and actually smile. One evening, after supper, Emily found him sitting there, watching the sky fade to blue. The light caught his face in a way that made him look years younger. She brought out 2 cups of tea and handed him one. "Never thought I'd find peace again," she said softly. Sam glanced at her. "You did more than find it. You built it." She smiled faintly. "With a lot of your help." He looked down at his cup, turning in his hands. "I think we both needed this place to remember what living feels like." They sat in silence for a while, listening to the night birds start their songs. Somewhere far off, a coyote cried. Emily leaned back against the railing. You ever think about leaving? He shook his head. Used to. Not anymore. Feels like everything I was running from ended right here. She nodded slowly. Me too. He turned to her, his voice gentle. You know, Jack was a lucky man. Not cause of gold or dreams, but cause you love him like that. Her eyes softened. And maybe I'm lucky too. 'Cause someone reminded me life doesn't stop when love ends. It just changes shape. Sam smiled, small but real. Reckon that's the truth. The night grew still around them. Fireflies danced in the tall grass, blinking like bits of fallen starlight. Emily felt something settle inside her, a calm she hadn't known in years. Do you think we deserve happiness after everything? She asked quietly. Sam looked at her for a long moment before answering. I think happiness ain't something we earn, he said. It's something we let happen when we stop fighting the past. Her throat tightened, but she smiled through it. That sounded like something a preacher would say. He chuckled. Maybe, but I ain't preaching. Just learning. Emily leaned her head on his shoulder. He didn't move away. The stars stretched wide above them, endless and forgiving. For a while, neither spoke. The air smelled of grass and smoke and life starting over. Then Emily whispered, Sometimes I still think about that night, about how everything ended. Sam nodded, and how everything began. She looked up at him, eyes shimmering in the faint light. Do you ever wonder why we survived? He thought for a moment, then said, maybe to prove that even broken hearts can beat again. She smiled at that. It was simple, true. The wind brushed through the trees, soft as a prayer. And there on that quiet ranch, under a sky that had seen too much, two people sat side by side. Not running, not hiding, just breathing. Maybe that was the real treasure all along. Not the gold buried in the ground. Not the dreams that never came true, but peace. The kind that comes after pain, when you finally stop looking back. Because in the end, life isn't about what you lose. It's about what you find in the ashes, and who's still standing beside you when the smoke clears. And for Emily and Sam, that was enough.